Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor should come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
All right, friends and neighbors, no need to give any tease today because we don't have a show today. No show today. April Fool, right, exactly. It is Wednesday, the 1st of April, and of course, doesn't make any difference here. We are in business as usual. Coming to you live over Free Speech TV and TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV worldwide. From our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, with all the news of the day, we'll bring you, we'll tell you what's going on, bring you the best guest, our own analysis of what's going on, and commentary on the news of the day, and look forward to hearing from you about what you think about it all, what it means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Well, boy, still more trouble in Indiana. Mike Pence having a news conference, Governor Mike Pence, a news conference yesterday, saying that they're going to fix this law. First, he said there was no problem with it. They weren't going to fix it. Now he says, well, they will fix it. And meanwhile, Republican presidential hopefuls for 2016 are scrambling to try to find out what to do and what to say about Indiana. But so far, 5 of them, Ted Cruz and Rick Perry and Marco Rubio and Bobby Jindal and Jeb Bush have all lined up in support of Mike Pence and the discriminatory law in Indiana. Haven't heard from some of the others yet. Good news from Iraq. The Iraqi military reports that they have retaken the city of Tikrit from ISIS. Now maybe Congress will get busy and pass an authorization for the use of military force. It would be nice if they authorize this war before the war is over. And some good news from Geneva as well. We're so close to a deal with Iran, a nuclear deal with Iran, that the talks have been extended for at least another day, maybe 1 or 2 days, to see if they can finish that deal. What a busy day here for the 1st of April in our nation's capital. The Bill Press Show, good to have you as part of it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
No show today. Sorry. All right. Turn your radio off.
Not ready yet. Hang on.
Turn the TV off.
We can't
All right.
yet,
April Fool. April Fool. You got to do it. Hey, hello, everybody. Yes, it's Wednesday. Can you believe it? The 1st of April already. Here we go into this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We don't care what day, whether it's April 1, 2, or 3. We're here with you to take a look at the news of the day and to talk about what it all means. Here from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and there with you on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. Coast to coast, there with you on Free Speech TV. Coast to coast, there with you worldwide on our video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. So good to see you today. Thank you for being with us. Getting up early and joining the program here because there is lots to talk about. Remember, you can join the conversation and we want to hear from you at 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Any one of those ways, you become part of the conversation, part of the program here. Part of the team, Team Press with Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Among many, many, many others, including Alicia Cruz on the phones at 866-55-PRESS and Cyprian Bolding on the scene with the video cam. Behind the cameras, behind the lights, there is Cyprian.
He doesn't need the spotlight.
No.
He is the spotlight.
Yes, and we don't dare give him the microphone.
No. We made that mistake. Oh, there he is.
Right.
Lock the door.
All right, so what do we do for April Fool's today? April Fool's Day. Nothing? Okay.
Here's what you do for April Fool. You don't believe a word anybody tells you. Not a word.
I guess that's a good place to start, right?
It used to be fun, right? But in the digital age, it's gotten so out of hand, and everybody thinks they have a good joke on April Fools, and maybe like 5% of them do.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite thing you did on April Fools?
You know what I did on April Fools is we used to have a sink that had one of those hoses that you could pull out and you use to spray the dishes down.
Yeah, we still have one.
You have one of those? I had one of those growing up, and I put a rubber band around it early on April Fool's one morning. So when my mom got up and she turned the water on, the rubber band was holding that hose down, so it just sprayed her all over her one morning. But it's not exactly the most original idea, but it worked out so well. It just completely soaked her in.
There it is. Way to celebrate April Fool's Day. Be mean to your mom.
Mean to your mom. We've already had, my kids have already been plotting April Fool's Day pranks.
Oh, yeah.
And I told them, I said, you don't play any on me, and you don't play any on your mom, but you can play all the April Fool's Day pranks you want on each other. Just don't destroy anything in the house.
My favorite that I remember is I came home, whatever. This wasn't that, well, it was, I guess, a long time ago. But anyhow, I came home, and Carol was in such a mood. She was so, I said, I said, what's wrong? And she said, I'm so pissed off. I can't believe it. Nixon's running again. And she had heard on
I've heard about the NPR.
She had heard on NPR that Nixon was running again. And she was listening, and she was so pissed off about it. I said, Carol, what day is it? April Fool.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's one of the legendary
it is,
April Fool's Day pranks.
Well, she fell for it.
Oh, man.
So.
Google always has usually a pretty good April Fool's Day prank.
And this year?
This year they have, if you go to Google Maps, they have in the bottom, you can change it to look at the satellite view. But today, you can also look at it in the Pac-Man view. And what it does is it takes the street that you're looking at, or the streets that you're looking at, and you can play Pac-Man in the streets of Washington, D.C., or Denver, Colorado, or San Francisco, or Chicago, or wherever you happen to be.
Or
Charleston, South Carolina. Anywhere
That's
you are,
pretty clever.
You can play Pac-Man in the streets of your city.
Pretty cool. Yeah. All right.
Which is how I spent most of our pre-show meetings.
We noticed your lack of attention.
Sorry.
All right. Hey, so enjoy April 1, and you can play any jokes on anybody else but us, as far as we're concerned. David Jackson from USA joins us, as he does every Wednesday morning. We'll also be, we got important stuff to look at today. What's the latest with the Tsarnaev trial up in Boston? We'll check in on that. The latest with the mayor's race out in Chicago with Lynn Sweet from Chicago Sun-Times. And, yes, good news out of Iraq. We'll hear from Molly O'Toole from Defense One about news that the Iraqi military have actually taken Tikrit from ISIS. All of that coming up. And Mike Pence, he keeps digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Now, this is not an April Fool's Day ploy.
No.
But some people thought that it was, because Amazon yesterday announced the Dash button. The Dash button. Here's how it works. It is just a button that has the logo of certain household items on it that you just press the button, and Amazon Prime will deliver those goods to you the very next day. So in other words, if you use Tide cleaning detergent, you just have a little button that has the Tide logo on it, and you put it next to your washing machine. So when you're running low, you press this button. It's Bluetooth enabled to to get in touch with your phone, which has the Amazon app, which then automatically orders more Tide for you.
Wow.
And it will show up at your door the next day.
So how do you get these little buttons?
You can order them. Right now it's very, very limited, but you can apply to get one on Amazon, and then they send you the button, and you say, I need this for Tide or Dove soap or Dial soap, whatever it is that you use, paper towels, anything.
Diet Pepsi?
Diet Pepsi. It's certain things that you will refill around your house, and they just put the little logo on it, and all you have to do is just push the button, and it shows up at your door.
Toilet paper,
boom. Right next to
everything
the toilet.
at arm's reach.
It's right
it's
there.
Amazing.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? But what's funny is a lot of people thought that this was an early April Fool's Day prank. Amazon was playing, but it is not. It is not.
All right.
On Sunday, HBO debuted Going Clear, Alex Gibney's documentary on the Church of Scientology, which is very, very good. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. I watched it, and I wasn't alone. Nearly 1.7 million viewers tuned in to see it, which is a record for HBO documentaries. It's the biggest documentary that they've had in almost a decade. The only other documentary that they've ever aired that garnered more viewers was When the Levees Broke, which is about Hurricane Katrina. That had 1.75 million viewers. Now, this is expected to get a lot more viewers because we're living in the DVR, HBO Go digital age, so it's only going to get bigger and bigger.
If you want to read a great book about a totally phony baloney, air quotes, religion, read Going Clear.
Yeah.
It exposes Scientology for the great fraud that it is.
This documentary is based on that book by Lawrence Wright. There's a lot of Lawrence Wright in the movie, and it's phenomenal.
And what all of us should be pissed off about is that these phonies are getting huge tax breaks under the name of religion for all of their properties around this country. Yeah. Going Clear. Buy the book. Read that book.
Yeah. And in the mountains of eastern Tennessee, there is a race called the Barkley Marathon. It was started by a man named Gary Cantrell 20 years ago. It is a 100-mile race through the mountains of Tennessee. Over the years, there have been 1,100 runners who have competed in the race. Out of all of those people, 14 have actually finished it. And over the weekend, they had their most recent race, and nobody won. Nobody finished. Nobody finished at all. In fact, they lost one runner for a while. It turns out the guy got lost and laid down and took a nap. And before he kind of stumbled to the finish line. But nobody won. There was a 60-hour time limit to do the 100 miles.
Oh, I see. There's a time limit.
Yeah,
right.
What a bunch of quitters.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. People from Tennessee.
Crazy. Crazy.
I'd never finished that race either because I'd never started.
I never started, exactly.
Right. Yes, indeed. Yeah, Mike Pence is obviously governor of Indiana. Our focus is still there on Indiana and the so-called Restoration of Religious Freedom Act in Indiana. And Pence obviously never learned the first law of politics for politicians in trouble, which is when you're in a hole. As Bill Clinton said, first rule, stop digging. No, he keeps digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. We know ever since he signed the law last Friday, there's been a huge backlash across the country and from inside of Indiana against this law, which just don't cut corners. It allows people to discriminate. It encourages people to discriminate against other Americans just simply because they happen to be gay or lesbian. And Mike Pence spent the first 4 or 5 days denying that the law did this. Yesterday, he had a news conference to try to clarify everything, and he ended up looking like another fool again because he continues to deny that the law has anything to do with discrimination. At the same time, he says, we're going to fix it so it is not about discrimination. Now, look, you can't have it both ways, Mike Pence. You know, the law is a bad law. Why don't you just admit it? Here he is saying anybody who says this law encourages discrimination or permits or allows discrimination, they're just smearing the state of Indiana.
The smear here against this bill is that it created a license to discriminate or a license to deny services. And that's just completely false.
No, it's not.
And baseless.
Read the bill, Governor. You should have read it before you signed it. Now, at the same time, denying it has anything to do with discrimination, he says, we're going to fix it.
I think it would be helpful, and I'd like to see on my desk before the end of this week legislation that is added to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana that makes it clear that this law does not give businesses a right to deny services to anyone.
Okay. So, now it has nothing to do with discrimination, but we're going to fix it by the end of the week so it doesn't have anything to do with discrimination. Again, why didn't he read the bill before he signed it? And Mike Pence, after that disastrous performance with George Stephanopoulos, I think George Stephanopoulos gets the Tim Russert Award.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So he's certainly the best and the toughest interviewer on television today. And by the way, he wasn't being mean. It wasn't being mean to Mike Pence or nasty. He just asked him a yes or no.
It's a yes or no question.
It's a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Governor, does it allow discrimination? Yes or no? And Pence would not answer it. Such a tortured response. But it was kind of the same way yesterday in that news conference. And Mike Pence did admit that, let's put it this way, it wasn't his finest hour.
I could have handled that better this weekend.
You don't say.
Going into that interview this weekend, I was just determined to set the record straight about what this law really is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In other words,
I'd say that was a swing and a miss.
In other words, I was determined to lie, lie through my teeth, liar, liar, pants on fire, and he got caught at it. But here's the funny. So, let's talk about it again. What do you think it means? And what does it say particularly what does it say about the Republican Party? 866-55-PRESS. Because what Mike Pence did, who plans on running for president, by the way, he's been talking about it, joining that cast of clowns, what he did was throw a hand grenade into the 2016 Republican primary. Because suddenly all these wannabe presidents have to respond. Okay? And so far, 5 of them have. And what did the 5 of them do? Rick Perry, Bobby Jindal, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Jeb Bush. All 5 of them have said, Mike Pence, you did the right thing. No need to fix the law. The law as it is a good law. Mike Pence did the right thing by signing it. We stand with Mike Pence. We stand with the Republican legislature in Indiana. All 5 of them, which is just absolutely insane. You know, I mean, look, are Republicans really going to run on anti-gay agenda, anti-same-sex marriage, anti-gay rights? I mean, are they really want to take us back to the 40s and the 50s? You know, or maybe not even back that far, but in 2004, as we know, George W. Bush got reelected because Republicans put 11 ballot measures on 11 different states in the Constitution, put it in the Constitution of those states to ban marriage equality, to ban same-sex marriage. All 11 of them passed, and George Bush got reelected. I may be off 1 or 2 here, but I believe that all 11 of those have been ruled unconstitutional now by courts in those states. So that day has come and gone. This is no longer the day of Pat Buchanan and Jerry Falwell running the Republican Party with their anti-gay agenda and with the social warfare, the social wars. But these Republicans are still fighting. They can't move on. They're still fighting the same wars because they're still trying to please the extreme religious right. And they think that's where America is. That's not where America is today. There are 19 states in the District of Columbia that authorize same-sex marriage. 70% of Americans live today in states which celebrate and authorize same-sex marriage. Why are they fighting yesterday's war? It is insane. 866-55-PRESS, and Mike Pence is leading it, and he's leading them right over the cliff. That's where we start here on this Wednesday, April 1. Let's talk about it. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed. By the way, not to be deterred or dissuaded, the state of Arkansas joined Indiana yesterday in passing a Religious Freedom Restoration Act as well. But the focus continues to be on Indiana, where in Clarksville, Indiana, we find Ed this morning. Hello, Ed. Thanks for joining us. What's going on there? What do you think?
Well, what's going on here is I feel that the state of Indiana Bureau of Motor Vehicles discriminates against the poor. They're denying them the equal opportunity to get a dealer's license to sell used cars. And on the flyer, what they do is they say, do not bring your application to the office of Indianapolis. That, in my opinion, is steering you away from it. And when you discriminate against the poor, that's what they call redlining in real estate terms. We are in NAFTA and CAFTA. We are in the World Trade Organization. We deserve an equal opportunity in business.
Well, Ed, I guess that's another form of discrimination, not really on the topic that we are talking about, but appreciate hearing from you. Redlining has been going on for a long time in the car insurance business. Mike Pence and Republicans, here's what we'll talk about when we come back. How can the Republicans, let's just talk arithmetic when we come back. How can the Republicans really expect to win a national election when they alienate every constituency other than old white men?
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, now at 33 minutes after the hour, how about it? It is the Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital. We're about the only people in town, by the way. The House and the Senate, they're off on a 2-week Easter break, right? They can't decide whether, like, Protestants, I guess, they get the week before Easter off, or Catholics, they get the week after Easter off. So they just take them both. I'm surprised they don't take the whole damn month.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, I mean, what the hell, right? You know, why have to come?
It.
Yeah, go out and come back, right? Just stay away. But we're here, and glad to be here with you, and we welcome all of you, and also welcome the sponsorship of the International Association of Machinists for this hour. Good men and women of the Machinist Union under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy. You bet. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, goiam.org. We've been talking about Mike Pence, continuing to talk, as we have all this week, about this so-called Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana signed by Mike Pence. But the bigger issue really is what this says about the Republican Party and the Republican presidential primary. It has created a quandary. You would think, I guess I should say, that it might create a problem for some of these Republican presidential hopefuls, but it doesn't, in the sense that all they have done is just line up behind Mike Pence and salute and say, yes, indeed, discrimination is the way to go. That's how we're going to win in 2016, which makes you stop and wonder, really? I mean, can they do any basic arithmetic? Because we've seen the Republican Party, just by its policies of the last few years, they have alienated blacks, alienated Latinos, alienated women, and continue to alienate the LGBT community. How can look at the electoral map, right? Look at the American people. How can they seriously, realistically think they can win back the White House in 2016? Oh, yeah. They can reapportion congressional seats and win House races by alienating all of those people and just depending on old white men. But how can they win the White House that way? They really think that they can declare war on African Americans and Latinos and women and gays and win the White House? They are absolutely crazy. And as I said before the break, they are still fighting the social wars of the days of Pat Buchanan and Jerry Falwell, and they think that's where America is today. And America has moved on.
Yeah.
I saw a poll yesterday, something like 70% of Americans say today, basically, homosexuality is no big deal. I mean, and these guys, they're playing to the most extreme element of the Republican Party, to the rabid religious right.
You know, it's an interesting story because, as we talked about, I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. It's a fairly conservative city, right? And there's a lot of old folks there who've been there for a long, long time, and they like the way that things used to be. So last year, I happened to go visit Charleston when it just so happened to be Pride Week. And we were going to the farmers market downtown Charleston, and there was a huge Pride parade in the middle of downtown Charleston. And there were so many people. And that would have never, ever, ever happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Just would have never happened. Yeah. And if it had, it would have been in an alley somewhere where nobody would have been able to pay attention to it. Times have changed. People don't care about that anymore.
No. I come back to, in 2004, George Bush won re-election by running an anti-gay platform, and the Republican Party, they did the deal. They put those 11 ballot measures on. Every one of them passed. Today, so 2004, right, we're talking 11 years later, 70% of the American people live in states where marriage equality is the law of the land.
Yeah.
And people celebrate same-sex marriage the way they should. You mentioned Charleston, South Carolina. From Lawrence, South Carolina. Hey, Robert, thanks for your call. Thanks for joining us this morning. What do you think?
Good morning. I think, if all the people that had gays in their families boycotted those businesses in Indiana, they would go under overnight.
Well, that's what some of the businesses in Indiana are worried about, Robert. Yeah, I think you're right. And by the way, that's probably the way to go, right? I think the economic, as we talked a little bit about this yesterday, the economic impact, I think, is what is going to be the greatest pressure on Indiana and Arkansas and other states to just get off this little wagon here. And they're in many ways led, what is interesting, by the tech industry. Tim Cook, the head of Apple, one of the first ones to come out and say this law is bad, and laws in other states. He talked about up to 100 different laws in different states that kind of do the same thing that we've got to fight. The New York Times this morning talks about Salesforce.com, also one of the leaders against this. Angie's List was one of the first ones to come out and says so. I think very significant, because those industries particularly are talking to and leading a younger generation in the new technology, right? And they know this just doesn't fly today.
Yeah.
Right. Out in Chicago, our good friend Joey. Hey, Joey, what's up?
Boy, when they fell from that stupid tree, they hit every branch on the way down, these Republicans. Oh, my goodness. What if a Muslim business or a Buddhist business or a Hindu business don't want to serve Christians or Catholics because they're infidels in their religion? Is that going to stand? How's that going to go over? Will that protect their rights, or is this only to protect the Christians' rights? I'm kind of curious about that.
No, that's a very, very good question. And the people who write these laws, I think, never think it through, right? They don't think about how put the shoe on the other foot.
Yeah.
Right? No, it's a very good point. And Joey, thanks so much for the call. It's good to hear from you. So this, in effect, until they fix it, would allow anybody to discriminate against anybody else based on their religion.
Yeah.
Right? So, yes, it would allow people in the Muslim community, Muslim neighborhood, not to serve Christians in their restaurant because they're infidels. It would allow somebody who's, take it to the extreme. My church, we don't believe in paying taxes in my church because, whatever.
Right.
However they read the Bible and twist the Bible to put it there. Therefore, we're not going to pay our taxes. Yeah, because my faith tells me not to.
How dare the state get in the way of my religion?
We don't believe in speed limits in my church.
Right.
Yeah. Or, how about this? As you pointed out yesterday, we believe in pot, though.
Church of Cannabis.
Church of Cannabis.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, exactly. So in the Church of Cannabis in Indiana, we are going to smoke weed wherever we want.
Yeah.
And you cannot do anything about
freedom.
it because that's our religious freedom.
Part of the other problem with this, too, that I think is so interesting is Mike Pence clearly is not happy just being governor of Indiana, right? Like, he wants a national title. He wants to be vice president or president one day. And the fact that this legislation has been so sloppy that he's had to come out and say, oh, we have to fix it, and he can't even explain what it is. Can you imagine if he had to do it with the American people with legislation that he wanted or pushed for or fought for? He can't get it done.
Yeah.
He's a mess.
No. You know what? It's sort of like, I was thinking about this morning. What I love about this is watching, well, let's put it this. People go, I've never been to a NASCAR race, but people go, I'm convinced, people go to NASCAR races because they want to see car crashes.
That's true.
They want to see these cars just slam against the wall. Okay. Watching the 2016 Republican primary is like watching a NASCAR race.
Yeah.
And one by one, these cars are hitting the wall.
Slamming into the wall.
Slamming into the wall, right? And so now this is Mike Pence slamming into the wall. We saw Chris Christie slam into the wall, right?
Yep.
And we saw Scott Walker slam into the wall.
Yep.
Now it's Mike Pence. And he's taking others down with him. So often when they have their crashes, right, they spin around.
They spin around.
And they get a couple of other cars on the way.
That's right.
Yeah, well, he's not.
That's really
Just think
good.
about that analogy. There it is. All right. Dave, we're going to continue to talk about this. It ain't going to go away. But David Jackson, take a little time out, talk to David Jackson down at the White House, covers the White House for USA Today, does a damn good job of it. Coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes out before the top of the hour here on The Bill Press Show on a Wednesday morning. President Obama making a little news last night, late yesterday afternoon. We didn't know about this during the briefing. He commuted the drug sentences of 22 prisoners, instantly doubling the number of commutations he had issued up until that time. Must have caught people, even David Jackson, by surprise down at the White House for USA Today. What do you say, David?
Good morning, Bill. Didn't catch you by surprise, but it bothered me because he did that less than an hour after he unfroze some arms sales to Egypt. So yesterday turned pretty busy pretty quickly.
Well, I know, and late in the day, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, why'd they wait so... What was the occasion for making that announcement, by the way?
Well, some cynics among us would say he likes to flood the zone with news, and that way it kind of divides people's attention because both of those things have very interesting implications. I mean, the arms sales to Egypt basically enables them to get involved in these wars in Yemen and Libya.
Yeah.
And the commutation thing is something he's had interest in a long time, and I think that yesterday's commutations are only a sign of things to come. I think you'll see a lot more and more of the president pardoning or commuting the sentences of nonviolent drug offenders.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
I think so, because that's something he feels like the drug laws have been unfair. And you know, we've had people in prison for 10, 15, 20 years for one nonviolent drug offense. I mean, there's a case out of Dallas that I'm familiar with. It's one guy, he got busted once, and he's been in prison for 20 years. And the president's asked Congress to look into this, and there are, I think Rand Paul's even involved in this. There are talks on Capitol Hill to try to change the laws that would spring some of these guys. But if that legislation doesn't come through, I think you're liable to see hundreds and maybe even thousands of commutations from the president.
And this is something that Eric Holder has made a priority as well.
Very much so. Very much so. Holder and Obama have been on this for a while, and I think as the president's term comes to a close, I think you'll see more and more of these.
In terms of managing the news, what I don't understand is, I mean, when all of us are assembled in the press briefing room, right? Mm-hmm. Why don't they tell us then, right?
I don't know.
You know, it seems to me that would be the logical time. We're going to make news today. Here are all these reporters. All right, let's make news, right?
You know, in the good old days, that's what the briefing was for. You know, the press secretary would get up there and read 4 or 5 things that were going on, and then we'd take questions. But that's gone away, Bill. It's just kind of a snap thing now where people just drop emails and make news.
Right. Okay. Well, focusing on yesterday's briefing, most of the questions, as you know, were about this deadline in Geneva. And the talks, it looks like they got so close that they've allowed things to spill over into another day. Is that a big deal?
I think so. I mean, I've never took this March 31st deadline that seriously because, you know, I think it was a year ago they said that they wanted to take a full year to do talks for a full-time agreement with Iran, and that would put the deadline in late June, and that's what I've always considered to be the real deadline.
Right.
This March deadline was put in at the last minute because of concern that Congress may get involved and try to impose more sanctions on Iran unilaterally. But and even though I think that's still a threat, I think it's less of a threat now than it used to be. So I think this whole March deadline is kind of a fake one.
What I found maybe amusing or maybe disturbing yesterday is that so many of our colleagues didn't seem to understand. I mean, like in any negotiation, if you're trying to buy a new car or buy a new house, right? And you get close to a deal, you're not going to say, "Oh no, I'm walking away because you said by noon today you were going to have."
No,
I mean,
it doesn't work exactly.
It doesn't work that way, right?
No, not at all. In fact, they could extend another day. I mean, there's nothing magical. There was nothing magical about that March 31st deadline.
No. And if they're close, Why not take another day? After being at it for almost a year, it seems to me to be foolish, right?
I agree, and especially considering what they're just talking about now, a framework. They're talking about the rules by which they would talk some more. So it's really, this isn't the agreement that this isn't the long-range agreement. This is just basically a piece of paper saying, hey, we're going to continue along this path, and we're going to get our technical people involved. So.
And John Kerry spending more time in Geneva than maybe he planned to. You did report on the lifting the weapons ban on Egypt, and yet we've still got some problems with Egypt when it comes to human rights and other issues. What triggered this? And what does it mean?
You have to wonder. I assume that'll be a topic of today's briefing, but you can't help but think that the U.S. wouldn't have a problem if Egypt got involved with some of these battles against the extremists that are in Libya and Yemen, and that's really the only way you can. They deny that, but that's the only real reason you can read into it. I want to point out that normally in a situation when they would lift these bans on weapons, they would say the country's making progress toward democracy.
Yeah, right.
They're not saying that for Egypt. They're saying it's in our U.S. national interest and the national security interest. And the only national security interest I can think of is the battle against the extremists in the Middle East. So
lifting the ban, does that mean that we can sell weapons again to Egypt?
We're again selling weapons to Egypt. We suspended it after the 2013 coup, but now that's gone away, and we'll be sending them F-16s and missiles and all kinds of stuff like that.
Right. Other news from the Middle East, learned a lot of foreign policy stuff this morning to talk about, is according to the Iraqi Prime Minister, the Iraqi military has retaken Tikrit.
Right.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. There are some signs of success in the military campaign against the Islamic State. Several cities have been recaptured from them. So I think that's something that you'll probably see the administration try to trumpet.
There seems to be some ground retaken in Iraq, not yet in Syria, but we have no forces on the ground in Syria.
Well, exactly. It's hard to assess what's going on in Syria because they've got a civil war going on, and we're the only ones who are really doing any bombing there. It's very hard to assess who's winning and who's losing in Syria because there's so many sides of the fight.
So the question, it seems to me now, is whether or not Congress is ever going to authorize this war before the war is over.
Exactly. Well, there's so much going on. Stories tend to slip. That's the one that we haven't heard much about lately. Of course, they're on recess right now, but I understand there are a lot of problems now. Who wants to say what in this military authorization? So maybe another one of those issues is just languish in Congress and nothing gets done.
No, I don't see any movement on the part of Republicans or Democrats to start the debate on the authorization for the use of military force, which, as you know, President Obama still denies he needs it, but he has asked Congress for it. So, right?
Exactly. Well, they haven't even confirmed Loretta Lynch yet. There's a lot of stuff pending up there on the Hill, so it wouldn't surprise me if the authorization got slipped back further and further.
All right. And finally, President Obama goes on the road again tomorrow?
He does. He goes to Louisville, Mitch McConnell's hometown.
Louisville, right.
And then he goes off to Utah, which will be the 49th state he's visited. So after Friday, he'll have only one state left, Bill. And you know what it is?
South Dakota.
South Dakota.
Yeah, right. How about that? I figured. Somebody said to me, why is he going to Salt Lake City? I said, there's only one reason. Yeah. Check it off.
Checklist.
Exactly.
Why? I don't understand why he doesn't do South Dakota on the same trip.
Might as well, right?
Well, my feeling is, that Mount Rushmore is there, and he does a lot of events in national parks, so that would be a good standalone event. That's my prediction for AM.
Oh, yeah, he wants to be on there someday.
He has to be measuring the rock for his spot.
All right, David, I'll see you a little later at the White House. Thank you, man. David Jackson.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Coming to a time limit, I'm sorry.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
In the next hour, we will check in on the status of the Boston Marathon bomber trial, and also we'll get the latest on the situation in Tikrit and Iraq with Molly O'Toole from Defense One. All of that in the next hour.
This
Stay with us.
is the Bill Press Show.
All right, friends and neighbors, no need to give any tease today because we don't have a show today. No show today. April Fool, right, exactly. It is Wednesday, the 1st of April, and of course, doesn't make any difference here. We are in business as usual. Coming to you live over Free Speech TV and TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV worldwide. From our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, with all the news of the day, we'll bring you, we'll tell you what's going on, bring you the best guest, our own analysis of what's going on, and commentary on the news of the day, and look forward to hearing from you about what you think about it all, what it means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Well, boy, still more trouble in Indiana. Mike Pence having a news conference, Governor Mike Pence, a news conference yesterday, saying that they're going to fix this law. First he said there was no problem with it. They weren't going to fix it. Now he says, well, they will fix it. And meanwhile, Republican presidential hopefuls for 2016 are scrambling to try to find out what to do and what to say about Indiana. But so far, 5 of them, Ted Cruz and Rick Perry and Marco Rubio and Bobby Jindal and Jeb Bush have all lined up in support of Mike Pence and the discriminatory law in Indiana. Haven't heard from some of the others yet. Good news from Iraq. The Iraqi military reports that they have retaken the city of Tikrit from ISIS. Now maybe Congress will get busy and pass an authorization for the use of military force. It would be nice if they authorize this war before the war is over. And some good news from Geneva as well. We're so close to a deal with Iran, a nuclear deal with Iran, that the talks have been extended for at least another day, maybe 1 or 2 days, to see if they can finish that deal. What a busy day here for the 1st of April in our nation's capital. The Bill Press Show, good to have you as part of it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Good news out of Iraq, apparently. We're told the Iraqi military, they got their act together and actually retook Tikrit from ISIS. All right, maybe Congress will authorize this war before it's over. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is, April Fool's Day, Wednesday, April 1st. Good to see you today, but no fooling around. This is the real thing. This is the real show. As always, bringing you the news of the day on your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast, on Free Speech TV, coast to coast, and all around the planet on TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Great to see you this April 1, and thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear from you at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number to get your take on the news, what you think about it, what's going on, and what it all means to you and your family, your community. You can also send us your comments, of course, on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Be a part of the team here. Join Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, indeed. And the team gets bigger and bigger every day. Alicia Cruz is here on the phone board there to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And the picture is going out, not just the sound, the picture going out, thanks to videographer Cyprian Bolding. Yes, April Fools, we're all lined up here.
Yeah.
Right? We all have our pranks ready for the rest of the day.
Trust no one.
That's it. Don't
believe a word that you hear today.
Don't believe anything you read in a paper, hear on radio, or see on television, or that anybody, particularly in your family, among your family and friends, don't trust them, right?
I never do.
Right.
I stay woke. 365.
We got a lot of things we want to check up on, including the latest on the Boston Marathon bombing. That's where we'll start this hour. Take a look at the latest from Iraq and Syria with Molly O'Toole from Defense One. Holly Bailey joins us from Yahoo News up in Boston. In the next hour, Lynn Sweet will be here to bring us the update on the Chicago mayor's race, and we'll visit with the head of the American Postal Workers Union, Mark Dimondstein, here in studio. A lot coming up. Here we go. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to the Navajo Nation. They are the first place in America to impose a tax on junk food. It's called the Healthy Dine Nation Act, signed into law.
Whoa.
And it again, they govern themselves. They have their own set of rules and laws, and they came up with this law and said that, we don't want junk food to be taxed at the regular rate. They're going to put a higher tax on it. So chips, sodas, pastries, desserts, fried food, sweetened beverages, and other products with, quote, minimal to no nutritional value sold within the borders of the Navajo Nation will have higher taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
I wonder if Michelle Obama's behind that.
Yeah, let's move. Yeah. They need some more kale smoothies, which is something that you can now buy at Starbucks, Bill. Starbucks is selling kale smoothies. It's a new line of Evolution Fresh smoothies that they're selling in parts of Northern California, Washington State, Oregon, and parts of Idaho, and they intend to roll it out all across the country. It's not just kale smoothies. You can get different kinds.
Are they gluten-free?
Strawberry smoothie, mango carrot smoothie, and sweet greens, which has kale. They cost $6, and you don't have to just get coffee. You can just
Seriously, a kale smoothie?
I don't think.
Let me tell you, Northern California, where I live, Northern California, Oregon, Washington State, it may fly there. It ain't going to fly in the rest of the country.
That's where it all starts.
And
those three areas.
And for me, it's one more reason not to go into Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if you get a kale smoothie and then you get Race Matters on your cup?
Race together.
Right. And you got to have the debate on race with your barista while you're drinking your kale smoothie.
Only white people are dumb enough to get
Sign
kale
up
smoothies,
for that.
by the way. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. And in Pennsylvania, Healthy World Cafe is the name of a restaurant, and they are functioning on something called Pay How You Can. And they will allow customers to eat for free in exchange for volunteering their time. So if you go in and you eat a meal, you can volunteer to sweep the floors, do the dishes, break down boxes, something around the restaurant. You just kind of kick in, and they'll feed you. So there you go. They have a pop-up restaurant right now, and it's going to have more permanent setup.
Yeah, well, they're going to have some paying customers along the way here.
They have to have some paying customers along the way. You're right.
As a business plan, I would suggest.
They do say that right now, about 80% of the customers actually pay for their meals.
Oh, I got it.
While
Okay.
20% will eat for free, and then they volunteer. So,
All right.
Healthy World Cafe.
Field trip.
Sounds like a kind of restaurant I wouldn't eat at anyway. Healthy
Yeah.
World Cafe.
I'd rather go up to Boston because there's some good restaurants
Lot
in
of good
Boston, even if you do have to pay. All eyes have been on Boston lately because of the Boston Marathon bombing trial. Yesterday, the defense rested after calling not that many witnesses. Holly Bailey's been on this issue for us and has joined on this trial for us and has joined us a couple of times to talk about it and is back on our news line this morning from Yahoo News. Hi, Holly. Thanks. Good to have you with us.
Good morning.
So the defense, how did they make their case and how many witnesses did they call?
They called just 4 witnesses,
Whoa.
mainly, but we actually didn't expect this to be a very lengthy part of their case because their argument is that Johar Tsarnaev was influenced by his brother Tamerlan Tsarnaev,
Yes.
and the judge really limited how much they could talk about Tamerlan in this phase of the trial. So we didn't actually expect it to go this long, but I think maybe we expected more than 4 witnesses,
Yeah.
a little bit more. But really, I mean, there were some witnesses that didn't seem to make much impact, but yesterday we had 2 people on the stand, one that was going through digital evidence from Tamerlan Tsarnaev's computer, Johar Tsarnaev's computer, which found that Tamerlan was the one Googling for bomb components, who was Googling to look for what the locations of gun stores in New Hampshire where it was hinted at that they were trying to buy bomb components. And then we also had a fingerprint analyst on the stand that showed that most of the components that were found at the Cambridge department, they all had Tamerlan's prints on them, not Johar's. And then on Boylston Street, some of the few items that they recovered from the bombs, those had Tamerlan's prints on them, not Johar's.
Huh.
The only thing that they recovered that had Johar's fingerprints on them was a plastic container bomb recovered from the Watertown scene. But there was only a couple prints from Johar. It was almost all Tamerlan on that.
Right. Now, and how many days was the defense up? I mean, compared to the prosecution?
The defense went for about a day and a half, but even describing it as that is not that much. It was probably 5 or 6 hours.
Whoa.
Just nothing.
And the prosecution was a couple of weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, the government was 15 days with 92 witnesses. So,
Wow.
yeah, you can see how that compares.
Yes. Now, so does the judge rule at this point before they move into the next phase of the trial, or what happens next?
Basically, what happens is that, and it was sort of a surprise, where we're taking a break until Monday. The case goes to the jury. First they have to go through closing arguments, and then the case goes to the jury. And the judge did not want to break that up, so he moved it past the Easter weekend. So closing arguments are set for Monday. The jury is expected to get the case that day. So we'll likely have a verdict on the first guilt phase of the trial next week.
The guilt phase, and the prosecution. I mean, the defense rather. I think you made this point the first time we talked. They do not challenge the guilt, do they?
No. And in fact, the first thing that Judy Clark, who is Johar Tsarnaev's attorney, said in her opening statements is that they don't dispute much in this case. They pointed to the pictures of him coming out of the boat. They pointed to pictures of him on Boylston Street, and they said it was him, basically admitting that he and his brother did it. But what they're challenging is, what their main argument is to try to save his life again, is that they're trying to argue that he was not the ringleader of this, that it was his brother, and that he was this troubled college kid sort of led down this path by his radicalized older brother. But they haven't really been able to make that case yet. And so what they did in this first phase of the trial was sort of hint at some of that stuff. Talk about, they interviewed one of Jahar Tsarnaev's friends on the stand testifying that he gave him the gun that was used to kill the MIT police officer. And during that testimony, they got him to admit that he'd never even been to the Cambridge apartment, that, Jahar had warned him about his brother. So there's bits and pieces of sort of ominous testimony about Tamerlan. The question is whether the jury will sort of remember that in the next phase. And
don't I recall that the prosecution tried with its witnesses to already negate some of that that theory by pointing out that, he was there. He had a bomb in his backpack, right? Right. He had bragged to some friends and emailed back and forth with some friends about his role.
Well, we actually didn't see any of that. There was before the trial, we were told that he had told some of his friends that he knew how to build a bomb. Yeah. But the government didn't present any of that. They didn't even put any of his friends who have been also sort of ensnared in this investigation on the stand, which was a bit of a surprise. What they tried to do, the prosecution, was show some of his Twitter messages dating back to 2011 and 2012, trying to sort of add this ominous air of showing that he was radicalized. But I don't necessarily know that they made that case. The defense pointed to some of the things that that he posted and saying, well, this is from rap lyrics and so forth. And so, but they did show that he had jihadist material on thumb drives that he was using. So we know he had access to that. But one of the things the defense did yesterday was show that it was Tamerlan who copied all that stuff off his computer, Tamerlan that downloaded that stuff. So, they're trying to sort of, it's a back and forth. It's overwhelming evidence against Jahar, no question, but the defense is just trying to get those little inches, those little bites, and to show that maybe Tamerlan was the one, indeed, that influenced him.
So this whole trial, right, boils down to whether Jahar Tsarnaev is going to spend the rest of his life in prison or be executed for his role in the Boston Marathon bombing. Is that correct?
Right. There's no choice of him going free, really. And so this is really a fight for his life. And there was some speculation about whether he would testify. He obviously didn't testify in this portion of the trial. But, I guess we'll resume to wondering whether he'll do the same in the penalty phase. I think it's really, really unlikely, but you just never know. And will the jury decide the penalty phase or the judge? The jury. What happens is that the jury
same jury? The same?
Yeah, same jury. Yeah. It's 12 jurors and 6 alternates. We've seen all 18 in court. They don't really know which ones are the alternates yet. They will decide the guilt next week, and then it goes to the penalty phase immediately. Right,
which probably won't last that long. Well, I'm telling you, it's been fascinating to watch, and particularly the 15 days and 92 witnesses versus 5 hours and 4 witnesses. Says a lot about this trial, doesn't it, indeed? Holly, we've been able to keep on top of it thanks to you and your time and your generosity. We really appreciate that very much. And your good work.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Oh, thank you so much.
National news correspondent for Yahoo News, Holly Bailey.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, here we are at 24 minutes after the hour. Molly O'Toole from Defense One joins us to talk about the latest news from Iraq with some good news that the Iraqi military has retaken Tikrit from ISIS, a gain of a lot of territory there in Iraq and a hard-fought battle. We'll find out more about it from Molly O'Toole. Meanwhile, here on the local, not local, but the national political front, Democratic Senate leader Harry Reid gave an interesting interview yesterday with Dana Bash from CNN. Senator Reid, of course, announcing last week that he was not going to run for re-election. That means that he would also be stepping down as Senate Majority Leader or Democratic Leader in the Senate. Happens to be in the minority now. And he immediately endorsed Senator Chuck Schumer of New York to be the next Democratic leader. In talking with Dana Bash yesterday, first of all, Dana was asking him how effective he thinks he has been as the Democratic leader. And Harry says, well, here's one thing you know about me.
There are people better looking than I am. There are people smarter than I am, but there's nobody that can work harder than I work. I am very concerned about Nevada, always have been. I'm concerned about the country, and My style may not be someone else's style, but that's who I am.
Yep, that's who I am. I like it. I mean, he's in a position right now where he's there for the next 2 years. He's not going to run for re-election. So basically, you say what you see is what you get, and you may not like it, but that's who I am.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Deal with it.
Right.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. And it does raise a question. I could ask you about how effective a leader you think he has been. You've heard me complain sometimes that I think Harry has not been, that Senator Reid has not.
He's almost out of office. You can call him Harry.
Has not been strong enough or forceful enough. At the same time, I must admit, right, he has been there in season and out of season, fighting the good fight, preventing on many occasions the Republicans for getting away with what they wanted to do in the Senate and just blocking everything. He's been a tough fighter. Of course, he was a boxer.
Yeah.
He's been in his own style. He's been a tough fighter, and I think a good leader. And we all owe him a great debt of gratitude. He was also asked about his decision not to run again, and why he decided to run the last time, which was a tough battle, as we recall. And he points out the more pressure he got the last time not to run, the more determined he was to run.
One newspaper here in Nevada kept beating up on me, and I said, I'm not going to let the bastards beat me, and so I decided to run last time.
Yeah, I'm not going to let the bastards get me down. Yeah. I'm going to run. And then, as you remember, Senator Harry Reid, he took on the Koch brothers, the only one to do so. I mean, he said in 2012, the whole election was all about the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers gotten a lot of hot water for that. He also went out after Mitt Romney and suggested Mitt Romney might have cheated on his taxes. Dana Bash says, do you have any regrets about doing all of that?
No, I don't regret that at all. The Koch brothers, no one would help me. They were afraid the Koch brothers would go after them. So I did it on my own.
So no regrets about Mitt Romney, about the Koch brothers? Because some people have even called it McCarthyite.
Well, they call it whatever they want. Romney didn't win, did he?
Damn!
I love it.
God.
Yeah, no, I'm not sorry about what I said about Mitt Romney. Hey, is he president of the United States today? No. Therefore, no regrets. As I said, right now, Harry Reid is in a very wonderful spot for him. He can say anything he wants for the next 2 years, and he will.
The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour on April Fool's Day, Wednesday, April 1, it is The Bill Press Show. We are brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, good men and women of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten. Making a difference in America's classrooms every day. You know they are. We salute the Teachers of America, thank them for their support, and you can find out more about their good work at aft.org. It's the Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Taking a look at the news of the day wherever it happens, here in our nation's capital, around the country, or around the globe. And halfway around the globe, some good news from Iraq yesterday. At least the Prime Minister of Iraq has announced that the Iraqi military has successfully retaken or liberated the city of Tikrit from ISIS. Molly O'Toole is in studio with us from Defense One, political reporter for Defense One. Molly, it's always good to see you. Thank you for coming in again today.
Thank you.
So, Is this a fact? I mean, is the Pentagon confirmed that, in fact, Tikrit is now back in the hands of the Iraqi military?
The closest the Pentagon would say as of yesterday is that Iraqi security forces had entered and they were in the town in the process of taking back the town, but they wouldn't actually confirm. They deferred those questions as to whether the Iraqi security forces had actually retaken Tikrit to the Iraqi government. But the Iraqi government statement said that they had taken the town and also thanked the Popular Mobilization Forces, which are some of the militia that are thought to be backed by Iran, that the U.S. had come into some disagreement with the Iraqi government about regarding their involvement in the operation.
Well, and to what extent so if we believe the Iraqi government, Tikrit is now liberated, to what extent did American forces play a role in that?
Well, certainly a significant role. I mean, there was
airstrikes.
Airstrikes. I don't believe anyone believed that it was going to be a quick operation, but it had kind of come to a standstill. The Islamic State was stronger in kind of the urban warfare going on into Tikrit. The Islamic State was stronger than they had initially thought, and they requested air support from the United States. Mm-hmm. Which initially they hadn't requested. And as a condition of that air support, the U.S. Requested that the militias that weren't under control of the Iraqi government, that weren't under their direction, pretty much step aside, and that was a pretty divisive issue for a number of days. But those U.S. airstrikes began. Now the Iraqi security forces they say they've retaken the city, but they also made sure to thank those popular mobilization forces that the U.S. had requested kindly step aside in order for us to do airstrikes. They also made sure to thank them. I mean, Dempsey said in testimony just a few months ago that when it came to the makeup of the ground forces in the Tikrit operation, that some 20,000 of them were these Shia militias, and that actually the Iraqi security forces, the government forces, and other forces were a minority. So it's a complicated situation in Tikrit, but when it's not our boots on the ground, it's someone's boots on the ground, and then we have concern when they're Iranian-backed boots on the ground. It's a very fluid situation.
So it sounds like they managed to take Tikrit with a little bit of help from their friends, the United States and Iran.
Right, and I think that's the reality in the Islamic State fight right now, and people may not like it politically or may be uncomfortable with it for legitimate reasons, but I think that's very much going to be what we see moving forward, that tension.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, what does this say about the Iraq, if true, again, and let's assume it's true for the purposes of this discussion, what does it say about the capacity of the Iraqi military? You know, we all sort of poo-pooed because we saw what happened the first time ISIS rolled into Mosul and Tikrit, and the Iraqi military dropped down their arms and ran back to Baghdad. Their arms, our arms, that we had provided for them, and they ran back to Baghdad. So do they have their stuff together now? What is this?
I think it's certainly an encouraging sign. They've said from the beginning, though, when it came to going on the offensive, taking back ground from the Islamic State, that these operations were going to be the most difficult in Tikrit, in Mosul, down the road. This is urban warfare. It's no longer precision airstrikes that the U.S. can help with. Door to door,
house to house, right?
Which is what some of the bloodiest fighting in Iraq was during the war. And so they've warned that these aren't going to be quick victories. It's going to be very...
We've all seen American Sniper. We know what that was like when they...
It's going to be very difficult. So I think this is certainly encouraging for the Iraqi security forces. I mean, the extent to which they had to rely on those militias is troubling to some. At least the U.S. military said they're watching very closely to see not only it's important to take back Tikrit, but perhaps more telling what happens after.
Hold it. Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if they can, not only if they can hold it, but what services they provide to allow people back in, to make sure that they're treating people equitably, that there isn't any essentially punishment of people that they believe may have made it too easy for the Islamic State to come in, and that's going to be the most telling for whether there can be a sustainable security situation for Iraq.
So how far is Mosul from Tikrit, and is the battle to liberate Mosul next?
I should really know how far away it is,
maybe not a fair question.
But I don't.
But I heard you say it's just up the road, so that's why I was...
No, I meant just up the road in terms of the timeline of...
all right.
So
is
Mosul,
it next?
It's difficult to say whether it's immediately next, but it's certainly the most... well, let me put it this way. The Pentagon was talking about it a few months ago. It's kind of the big kahuna. That's a stupid way to put it, but it's going to be going to be the biggest battle. It's the biggest city, the most populated, that's held by the Islamic State.
It's the second largest city in Iraq.
Exactly, and so it's going to be the most decisive sort of battle for whether the Iraqi security forces can really take back territory from the Islamic State. So down the road, so to speak, in terms of this is what comes next.
Okay.
Tikrit is kind of just a proving ground.
Peter's checking on MapQuest.
Yeah, just
right now.
Ask Siri. Hey, Siri.
No, that's right. Ask Siri. How far? Right. I've got my rental car. I just need to know.
Right.
Hey, you could use...
with those passable roads.
You could use Waze to get there.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good idea. That would work.
They'll tell you how far it is and what time you get there.
If you're driving, Bill, it's about 3 hours, by the way. I just found out. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
A 3-hour drive. Okay.
Just a pleasant road trip.
Yeah, Mosul, what do we call the big kahuna or not? It was when ISIS took Mosul that most of us became aware of the existence of ISIS, right? When they took the second largest city in Iraq, we said suddenly, wait a minute, whoa, what's going on?
Right. I mean, I
and
think
who are these guys?
I think Fallujah symbolically for a lot of people in the U.S. was also pretty significant. But yeah, in terms of tactically, strategically, what they were capable of, that was a whoa moment.
All right. Now, when we talk about retaking Tikrit, that reminds us that we are involved in this military operation in Iraq and in Syria. And yet, Congress has yet to even debate the authorization for the use of military force. So will there be a new AUMF before authorizing this war before this war is over?
Well, the war, the military operation, the U.S. involvement, they've said it's going to go on for years. And I think we should take them at their word on that. But that doesn't necessarily answer the question even of whether we would have an AUMF before it's over. I mean, it was already going to be difficult in the first place. And Senator Corker, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, essentially said a few weeks ago that they're focused on Iran, that the AUMF's got a back seat. Everyone's saying it's very important that it gets bipartisan support, but they're really people have drawn red lines on both sides. It's difficult to see how they're going to come together, especially when all of their political attention is diverted elsewhere. Because they see it as so intractable, I think it's kind of fallen by the wayside in terms of their priorities.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't see any movement, which I find rather stunning, on the part of Republicans or Democrats to schedule debate on the issue, to schedule a vote on the issue, and to make a declaration of war or refuse to do so. And the president, while he said, I don't need this authority, I'm acting under the old AUMF, he's asked them for a new AUMF, basically asking Congress to do its job under the Constitution, and nobody in Congress seems interested in doing it.
No, they weren't eager from the very beginning, but it was kind of being put off because of the midterm elections. And after the midterm elections, it was because there was a lame duck. Then when the new Congress comes into place, it's because, we haven't gotten the right high-level people from the administration to come over. The White House hasn't given us a draft. Now it's taking a backseat to Iran and the budget. And now we're going to get into what could potentially force the issue to come up again is what involvement the U.S. military would have in a Mosul operation. And in addition to it being the season for the National Defense Authorization Act to start being considered. And in the past, that's been talked about as a vehicle for the AUMF, or at least for that debate. So those are potentially two ways in which it could come up again. But it certainly has fallen by the wayside in terms of their attention.
My read is if they can find a way to avoid it, they will.
Yes, I think that's safe to say.
Molly O'Toole with us from Defense One, taking a look at the latest hotspots around the globe. You can follow her good work at defenseone.com, together with the rest of her colleagues. Continue our conversation when we come back. If you want to join the conversation, we invite you, your questions, your comments at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. what they're good at. In general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. April Fool's Day here on the Bill Press Show. Molly O'Toole here with some serious business. We're not joking around.
I'm just waiting for something.
No. We
we're
decided
not going
we decided we're going to be good to our guests.
It's
today.
gotten so out of hand in the digital. I mean, with Twitter and Facebook, like there used to be really good, well thought out, planned April Fool's Day pranks that people would pull. Now it's so lazy. It's just yawn.
Millennials.
I'm telling you, they're ruining everything.
They have ruined everything. They really have. Yeah. The top of the next hour, we're going to jump out to, we're always in Chicago, thanks to our great friends at WCPT, but we're going to focus on Chicago at the top of the next hour and take a look at the mayor's race there with Lynn Sweet, Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. Then later in the hour, Mark Dimondstein, who is the president of the American Postal Workers Union, will be joining us as well. On the national defense front, Molly, late yesterday afternoon, President Obama announced that we were lifting the ban on selling weapons to Egypt. My understanding is this ban was put in place because we had some real serious problems with Egypt with its human rights record,
Right.
boom, boom, boom. So have they made so much progress that now we're selling them weapons again, or what's going on?
No, certainly not. And the White House didn't even really attempt to deliver this message as saying that there had been some markers of progress, and thus this hold on essentially military arms exports to Egypt had been lifted. I think that's very much another example of President Obama, especially when he came into office, talking a lot about democratic reforms, about human rights, and really pushing our partners, engaging in diplomacy, but really pushing our partners on those issues. Another situation in which he's kind of been forced to sacrifice that principle in the interest of national security, foreign policy in the region. It's kind of a devil's deal that we've been making with a number of allies in the region. So he put it in place in 2013 after what they essentially refused to call a coup.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially lifting it now because they need Egypt as a partner.
And there's speculation that we are doing this because we hope then that Egypt will use these weapons that we will sell them maybe to go against some of the Islamic extremist groups in Yemen and other countries?
Well, I think the reality is that Egypt has already started to kind of initiate its own offensives. They did airstrikes in Libya. That they've said that they are going to be involved in the military operation that Saudi Arabia is leading against the Houthi rebels in Yemen.
Right.
So I think the understanding is that they would be using this military aid to engage in those fights. But they haven't exactly waited for the U.S. to lift that hold in order to start engaging there. But I think that the U.S. sees them as one of their more reliable partners. But our military-to-military relationship with Egypt, despite this hold, has been extensive. I mean, in his note, Obama said that beyond this assistance, which had essentially been just held up, already approved but held up since 2013, that he was going to continue to ask for $1.3 billion in military assistance to Egypt, as they do annually from Congress each year. So they're one of the highest recipients of military aid. So that military-to-military relationship has been extensive. So it's not as if they weren't already likely using military equipment from the United States.
And you mentioned that, I mean, the situation in Yemen is so murky right now, right? I mean, who's in charge? The leader of Yemen is forced to flee. I think he's in Saudi Arabia now. And the Saudis are in Yemen fighting the Houthis?
Well, they're not on the, well, at least as far as we know, they haven't invaded Yemen, for example. Okay. I mean, they're engaging mostly in airstrikes at the moment, but there's been a lot of movement of military equipment to that border that they have. And then just over the past week, a coalition of Arab nations has discussed essentially putting up a joint military force. Now, the details of that are very unclear. The U.S. has tactically said that they would support that in theory, but the devil's in the details. But there are certainly concerns that could make things better before it makes things worse. Who knows to what extent that kind of military involvement in these already very messy situations isn't going to escalate these situations rather than de-escalate them. And
very quickly, in Geneva, yesterday was a deadline, but the deadline has been extended a little bit because
the deadline-ish.
Deadline.
Right.
They seem to be close to getting a deal.
In Lausanne, I think.
What's your read?
Well, the deadline from the beginning was relatively arbitrary. I mean, the parties had agreed, they had entered into it, but the real deadline is June 30th. I think the administration left them wiggle room the whole time that if we're close, and there's some logic to this. If we're close, why would we say midnight's the deadline versus 2 a.m. versus Wednesday? But I think the more they push it, the harder it's going to get, especially the U.S., the administration politically, to say, hey, we're making progress. Congress, we still need you to hold off and give us some breathing room to get this thing done.
Yeah. So, if it takes another couple of days, but they still to come to agreement, fine. If it takes longer than that, then Congress may get impatient, I guess.
Right, certainly. Yeah. Well, and they're back April 13th, so.
All right. That's the real deadline. Molly, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. All right, good to have you in studio. From Defense One, defense1.com. Don't forget, when we come back, I'll tell you what's on the president's agenda today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hour number 3. Remember, on Free Speech TV, you'll have to wait until 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central to watch that third hour, but you can watch it right away, real time, on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And in the next hour, we're going to jump out to Chicago to take a look at the mayor's race. Ken Ramoman will pull off a re-election bid here. Lynn Sweet from the Chicago Sun-Times will join us. And then we'll be joined by Mark Dimondstein, who is president of the American Postal Workers Union. All of that coming up in hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show. So hang in there.
Ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the next hour, Chicago's mayor's race. How close is it? Does Chuy Garcia have a chance against Rahm Emanuel? Lynn Sweet from the Chicago Sun-Times will fill us in. And then Mark Dimondstein, president of the American Postal Workers Union, talks about a big rally coming up later today here in Washington, D.C. President Obama, something fishy is going on here because he doesn't have a lot on his schedule today. Yesterday, he didn't have a lot on his schedule, and he ended up commuting the sentences of 22 drug offenders. And he ended up signing some special legislation. So things may get added to the schedule, but for now, the president gets a daily briefing at 10 o'clock and then has lunch with Joe Biden at 12:30. You know he's got more on his plate today than that. What's going on? Maybe we'll find out. At 12:30, we have our daily briefing with Press Secretary Josh Earnest.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now. We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans. Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
2 anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Seen around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
April Fool. Yes, indeed. This is the day. Watch out. Don't believe anything anybody tells you today, except what we tell you here on the Bill Press Show. Good to see you. Wednesday, April 1st. Thank you for joining us. The Bill Press Show coming out to you live nationwide. Coast to coast from our studio here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. There on your local progressive talk radio station with you. They're with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Here in Washington, D.C., the House and the Senate are out of session. They are off for their 2-week Easter break, but, we're still here on the job. We'll bring you up to date on all the news, such as it is from Washington. A little bit of news from the White House yesterday, around the country and around the globe. Take a look right here at the top of the hour with at the big mayor's race out in Chicago. And at the half hour, we'll be joined by Mark Dimondstein, who is president of the American Postal Workers. And Team Press here in studio, ready to go. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello,
here we
guys.
are.
Yes,
hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz is here to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And we're looking good on the video stream and on and on Free Speech TV. Thanks to our videographer, Cyprian Bolding, on the job. Yes, and we've talked a lot, just very quickly, we've talked a lot about Indiana and Mike Pence. And Mike Pence signing that Religious Freedom Restoration Act. He's gotten a lot of criticism from a lot of different quarters, right? Maybe the most unexpected, he's even been criticized by NASCAR.
Amazing.
As Conan O'Brien pointed out last night.
A lot of anger over Indiana's law that many say discriminates against gay people. Well, earlier today, this is the latest, NASCAR's chief communications officer said that NASCAR is disappointed in Indiana's religious freedom law. That's what NASCAR said. Yeah. So do you hear that, Indiana? You're not progressive enough for NASCAR. Here, actually, that's a new low for you.
That's just the test, right? You don't pass the NASCAR test.
That really is amazing.
Yeah, you don't pass the redneck test.
Yeah.
Even, right.
And while the NCAA, yeah, I'm with you on that. The NCAA is having their tournament there, and they're not going to say anything about it.
And you got the Indy 500 right there.
But NASCAR.
Yeah, amazing. It is. All right, Lynn Sweet's going to join us from Chicago Sun-Times and bring us up to date on Chicago. And again, Mark Dimondstein from the American Postal Workers Union later in the hour. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. In Pennsylvania, a man by the name of Stephen Wojtak was going to put some flowers and decorate the grave of his mother-in-law when the gravestone toppled over and killed him. It was a 300-pound granite block. Apparently, by the way, this happens sometimes in the spring to gravestones. The ground begins to thaw out and they can shift.
And most gravestones are not big enough to kill you.
Well, that's the point. She had a large gravestone, and so he was hanging something at the top of her gravestone. It toppled over on top of him, and it killed him. So the
revenge of the mother-in-law.
That's right.
Vengeance after death.
Outlived his mother-in-law. She got him in the end. There you go. A new study took a look at children in their teens who drink. Right? Obviously, you're not allowed to drink, but kids who abuse alcohol when you're in your teens. It's in the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs. found that children who had sipped alcohol by the 6th grade were about 5 times more likely to have a full drink by the time they were in high school. So, those kids, those parents who will let their kids have a little sip when they're,
or
11.
kids who steal sips.
Or kids who steal sips. Yeah,
Guilty, right.
But those kids are 5 times more likely to abuse alcohol when they're in high school. So just watch it if you've got like an 11, 12
Move on to the next story.
You're feeling the heat here. I'm not
Yeah.
judging you. I'm not judging you. And yesterday, President Obama commuted 22 drug sentences. That instantly doubled the number of commutations that he's issued in his presidency. It all goes to drug offenses. And again, he hasn't done many of them at all in his entire time in office. He wrote a letter to all of the people that were commuted saying, I hope you do something with your life now that you're out of prison. One of the people whose sentences was commuted, Francis Darrell Hayden, he had been sentenced to life in prison because he was growing marijuana in his backyard in 2002.
Yeah, I mean, the people that are in prison today for nonviolent drug offenses is just absurd, ridiculous, and it's been a priority of the president and the attorney general to do something about the sentencing laws. And where Congress doesn't act, the president is doing what he can.
They're showing that they're going to make a real shift here because in the previous 6 years of the administration, they haven't been that great about clemency or commutations or any of that stuff. They're really going to get aggressive on this, it looks like. So
okay. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. On the political front, nothing more exciting than the big mayor's race out in Chicago, less than a week away. Nobody knows the situation there on the ground better than our good friend Lynn Sweet, who's Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times, joining us on our news line this morning. Hey, Lynn, how are you?
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Good. Haven't seen you in a while, and good to talk. So let's start with last night was the big debate, or the last big debate, I guess, right? Between
it's the last of 3, yes.
Yes.
And the voting is Tuesday.
Right. How did it go last night?
Well, I can't really tell you that because I don't know that one on the debate. But I could say in general there is a lot of enthusiasm in the city. Not a lot of enthusiasm in the city, but there is a lot of focus in the city on this mayor's race. The key thing on Tuesday is going to be whether or not that translates into turnout because it was so low in the first round that I was surprised that people were barely paying attention. And one of the things that's interesting in this, so the listeners know, this is a runoff, the final round of a runoff election. And one of the messages I think that Rahm Emanuel got very soundly in the first round is that even the people that liked him were coming out to vote for him, and that a lot of this was personality driven, because if he had gotten at least 50%, he wouldn't be facing another vote.
And it seemed, a lot of people outside of Chicago, maybe inside Chicago, were surprised that it's Chewy Garcia, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Jesus Chewy Garcia.
Right. That he was able to force Rahm, that Rahm didn't walk away from the first runoff with a victory, that he was forced into a runoff. So what is that just because people don't like Rahm?
You hit it. It's that simple. And I know that sounds hard to believe that a lot of that so much that is personality driven, but the other thing is that Rahm didn't have in the first round a good turnout, a good field organization, because if he had worked the wards where he could have votes, his voters didn't turn out. There is a sense of movement politics in Chicago like I have not seen in many years. People who are of a certain age remember what it felt like when Harold Washington was running for mayor. There also is, on the national look, I think people are surprised because Rahm, from the Washington Press Corps, had probably more friends than he does in the Chicago Press Corps, where the City Hall reporters are just They look for different kinds of stories, and they're a very tough bunch.
Is the movement on behalf of Chuy Garcia or on behalf of Rahm Emanuel?
No, it's on behalf of Garcia. Especially the major national progressive organizations are all for Garcia. A lot of there is a lot of union interest and union money helping Garcia now.
Particularly the teachers, right? Played a major role.
Union, especially, and a lot of the whole movement to run against Rahm got started as a result of the Chicago Teachers Movement. The Chicago Teachers Union.
Mm-hmm.
But one interesting thing here is that some of the trade unions, a few of the trade unions, are for Rahm and have given him money. But the unions that have more of a that are not the high-paid worker unions, commercial CWA, AFT, the transit union. They're the unions that are helping.
The more grassroots-oriented.
Absolutely. And he was in Washington last week at a fundraiser, and some of the leaders of those unions came out.
So it's next Tuesday, right?
Right. And one other thing of interest: Senator Bernie Sanders will be in Chicago at a Get Out the Vote rally on Thursday for Garcia.
For Garcia? Oh,
yeah.
Really?
So yes, and he sees this. I did an interview with him that you could find if people look at my Twitter feed at Lynn Sweet. They could find the column. He puts the Garcia-Rahm race more in the context of the rise of interest in national progressive politics.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that context there. Rahm has his share of people coming in certainly to endorse him, but I think when I talked to Garcia last week when he was here, I think he's trying just to win 50 wards and isn't necessarily looking at the big national picture here.
Well, President Obama endorsed Rahm Emanuel in the primary, and it didn't do him that much good, right? So
it did not get him across the finish line. Interestingly, the White House, through the Democratic National Committee, released a picture of Obama filling out his mail-in ballot for Rahm just a few days ago.
Oh, wow. They're still trying to keep it. Now, how about the money? Does Garcia have enough money to be really competitive?
Well, he has been inundated by ads run by Rahm. Rahm has, I think it's maybe 10 million more. It is, Garcia will have a few million to be on TV, but nothing compares to Rahm. Because of the way the state campaign laws are, there are no limits in this particular mayor's race, and Rahm has been scooping in mega donations from jumbo millionaires, and that's been a point of contention.
Wow. So a lot riding on this, really. Yeah.
Hey,
Rahm in Washington is seen differently as Rahm in Chicago.
Yeah.
Hey, Lynn, I want to ask you about this viral image that kind of was kicking around last week. It's a picture of a very happy, smiling Rahm Emanuel with an African-American man who works at a health food store. And the guy put it on Instagram, and the caption is, "The mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, came by my job. Still can't stand that MFer, though." And it got a lot of traction, but it also speaks to how some people really view Rahm as maybe a little bit of a phony.
No, I think it's not phony. Mm-hmm. I think people see him as genuinely abrasive.
Okay. Okay, yeah, all right.
And I say that even people who are fond of him say that. What got him through Washington, kind of this abrasiveness, does not work when you're the key elected official, where you need buy-in from people. You could have the best policy in the world, but you have to get people to understand why they want you, why you should believe in it and follow it. And and he has a lot of policy ideas. The issue is, for his time in office, the city's bond rating is down. There's still problems with the pension. There's still problems with crime. And most centrally, what he did that I think sparked a lot of controversy is a few years ago he tried to close 50 public schools.
Right.
And, part of what you see today is the fallout from that.
Right. The mayor's race in Chicago. April 7 is Election Day, and Lynn Sweet with the Chicago Sun-Times. So it's suntimes.com, of course, but your Twitter feed is at Lynn Sweet, right?
Yes, at Lynn Sweet.
At Lynn Sweet. Follow Lynn. She does a great job and a good friend of the program, too. Hey, thanks, Lynn. Good to catch up with you.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you again soon. It's Rahm Emanuel versus Chuy Garcia. I think it's very significant that Bernie Sanders is going out there for this Get Out the Vote rally tomorrow. I think she said Thursday on behalf of Chuy Garcia. Seeing it because this is part of the progressive movement that elected Bill de Blasio in New York and now Chuy Garcia in Chicago. And we'll continue to check in on that with all of our good friends and all of you out there in the land of WCPT in Chicago. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination, the scut work, to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, you got it. 25 minutes after the hour. The president of the American Postal Workers Union, Mark Dimondstein, joins us in studio in the next half hour. Still a lot of controversy surrounding the Indiana Restoration of Religious Freedom Act, so-called, and Governor Mark Pence. He keeps digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper, as he did yesterday, having a news conference in which he at once continued to deny that this law has anything to do with discrimination, but then in the same breath said, but we're going to fix it because it does allow people to discriminate, and that's not right. He can't get his message straight at all. And Mark Pence started out yesterday by saying, anybody who says this is about discrimination is just smearing the state of Indiana.
The smear here against this bill is that it created a license to discriminate or a license to deny services. And that's just completely false and baseless.
Well, maybe, Governor, you should have read the bill before you signed it into law, because that's exactly what it does. And members of the state legislature admitted that's what it does. And businesses in Indiana, some businesses in Indiana, led by religious extremists or owned by religious extremists, say they intend to use the law to do that, to not serve gays and lesbians because their religion tells them it's immoral or evil.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. And
you know, the Indianapolis Star has been brutal on Mike Pence over this. The other day, their cover story, their front page.
Yesterday, front page.
Fix this now. This morning, one of their columnists has this piece saying, quote, when you have to clarify a horribly damaging piece of legislation that you raced to sign, when you dodge a question on national TV about whether discrimination is legal in your state, when you deal your state a crushing economic blow, when you seem incapable of understanding the role you have played in creating this mess, well, that makes clear that you are not in the right job.
Whoa.
Just destroying Mike Pence.
Yeah, right.
That's again in the Indianapolis Star this morning.
And by the way, then Mike Pence went on to say in his news conference that again, after denying it has anything to do with discrimination, he said, but I have asked the legislature to fix it, and he wants them to fix it this week, he says, so he can sign another bill which will fix the bill that he should not have signed in the first place. And this guy really thinks he's presidential material? No, he's in the wrong job as governor.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 33 minutes after the hour on this Wednesday, April 1. Yeah, it's April Fool's Day, but we're serious about the news here we're talking about today. We don't care if it's April Fool's Day or not. It's The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station, and also coming to you live coast to coast on Free Speech TV worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're here in our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. Proud to work for America every day, you bet, and you can find out more about their good work at afge.com. Other federal employees, members of the American Postal Workers Union, and we're very pleased and proud to welcome to the studio for the first, I hope, of many visits, the president of the APWU, Mark Dimondstein. Hey, Mark, nice to see you.
Good morning, Bill, and thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Tell us about the work of the American Postal Workers Union, because there are different unions representing the postal workers. And now, let me ask you to get closer to that mic if you can.
Bill, there are four postal unions. The American Postal Workers Union represents about 200,000 proud postal workers, proud of the mission that we have, proud of the service to the people of this country. And we represent people that work the counters in the retail units when your listeners go buy stamps, mail packages. We represent the people that sort mail all night long throughout the country so it can get to your doorstep as quickly as possible. We represent the maintenance employees who keep those buildings going, keep the equipment going, and we represent truck drivers that haul mail between processing plants, stations, and branches.
You know, and I got to tell you, and I don't say this just because you're sitting here, our listeners and viewers have heard me say this many times. I'm a huge fan of the Postal Service. We have a post office just maybe 6 doors up the street.
Right, I saw it coming here.
From the corner, okay.
You got a radar for those things.
I was there yesterday. The people that work the counter there are the best. I mean, great. We use them all the time. You know, great service. You know, the express service they have overnight or 2 or 3 day delivery. There are 2 of them. I know the express. I forget what the other one's called, but
the other one would probably be Priority Mail.
Priority Mail, right? Yeah, but it's a great service. I mean, it gets you there anywhere in the country, right? Just about the next day service. It's just a great operation, and I salute you for that. And I just want you to know your people are doing a good job. Yeah.
Well, great. The one of the problems we're facing, Bill, is it is a great service, but it has been undermined and diminished over the past few years by a postal management that's more interested in cutting and slashing than in that's of course.
And particularly in rural communities, they really do depend on the post office.
Absolutely.
And I don't think they understand the extent to which its ability to continue to do the job is threatened by policies in Congress and with the Postal Board. I want to get to that in just a second, but right tomorrow, a big event here in Washington, D.C., in front of the White House, a big rally. You're going to be part of, one of the speakers there. What's it all about? Tell us about it.
That rally is about getting dirty money and out of politics.
Amen to that.
Most of your listeners are probably in tune with what Citizens United did in 2010, what McCutcheon did last year. This is the anniversary of the McCutcheon case, 1 year, which further opened up unlimited donations of the super wealthy to political parties and to candidates. So tomorrow,
and with Citizens United, a lot of that money, we've no idea who's providing that, who's giving that
no
money.
idea, because the law allows unlimited secret money from organizations and individual monies to what they call non-disclosure organizations, those that hide behind nonprofit 501. C's and so on. So tomorrow, this rally is called by Public Citizen. Mm-hmm. We're proud to be part of it, and we're shining the spotlight on the dark money donations of the federal contractors to congressional politicians, presidential races, and so on. And we're asking the president to simply sign an executive order that any donations given by any corporation that is involved with federal contracting, that has to be transparent, has to be open, has to be there for the public to see.
And, first of all, the president is interested now, it seems, in doing as much as he can by executive order, because God knows he's not going to get any cooperation out of Congress, right? And he signed other executive orders which place certain requirements on federal contractors, the minimum wage, for example, right? So this is something he can legally do.
Legally do. It doesn't take a vote of Congress. There are going to be hundreds of thousands of petitions delivered tomorrow as well. And this is an anti-corruption measure, right? The idea that corporations can give secret money to candidates that then vote on whether they get government contracts or vote on policies that open up government contracts, that is clearly something that has to be opened up. And hopefully, if it is opened up, it'll bring more of a spotlight on the problems with Citizens United overall.
Right. The whole question of, it's interesting, I was give a speech recently and opened it up to questions afterwards, as I normally do. And the very first question was someone, I forget exactly where it was, give so many of these, but the very first question was something about if I could do anything at all to get what would I do to try to get money out of the political system? I mean, people don't talk about, I think, enough anymore, campaign finance reform. We used to talk about. It's such an important issue because, to me, it underlies every other public policy issue, right?
Well,
the ability of some people to give unlimited amounts of money, particularly dark money, just pollutes the entire system.
Right. The billionaire Koch brothers, so we're talking about two individuals now, have already announced that in the next election cycle, they plan to spend over $900 million individually to really buy elections. Now, that's just two people, and that's just the money they're going to report. So who knows how much more is going to go into the non-disclosed area. So that when we talk about the need for finance reform, that is the most outstanding example. And unfortunately, there are many other people like them. So these elections are being bought and sold, and there is a correlation between how much money a candidate has to spend on elections and how those elections come out.
No, absolutely. And there's something else too, is that this Roberts Court is not through. Citizens United and McCutcheon were just the beginning. They will get rid, if they have their way, they'll get rid of every single limit on any campaign contribution across the board.
Right,
Yeah.
and then all that money affects policy, labor policy, environmental policy, people policy,
every single
war
issue.
and peace policies, and so on.
Absolutely, every single issue. So this is the beginning. This is at least something the president can do.
Yeah.
You're asking him to do with this rally tomorrow in front of the White House. Have you heard? Have there been any discussions that you know of yet with the White House? Are they inclined to do this, or do you have any idea?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I am sure that the folks who are leading this fight have had that, but I don't personally know.
You know what? There you go. I'm going to be at the White House briefing today at 12:30. If I have a chance,
Great.
I'm going to take this with me, and I'll ask Josh Earnest about it, and maybe we can get a maybe get a little insight.
Right.
Today.
And any of your listeners in the area, 12 noon tomorrow, April 2nd. In front of the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's April Fool's Day, as you said.
Today, but tomorrow's for real.
But tomorrow's for real, and we also want to make sure that they're not making fools of us, because it's not a laughing matter.
Yeah, good point. That White House, of course, at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, in case you weren't sure exactly where it was. Be there tomorrow at noon. We're here with Mark Dimondstein from the American Postal Workers Union. When we come back, Mr. President, I'm going to ask you more about some of the threats and what people should be worried about in terms of the Postal Service, and what we can do maybe to stop some of those things from happening. Again, the Bill Press Show. Any questions? You got your complaints about your Postal Service, if you have any, or maybe some good things to say about it. Now's a chance to let us know at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
14 minutes before the top of the hour, President of the American Postal Workers Union, Mark Dimondstein, here in studio with us. Mark, let's talk a little bit about the Postal Service. They talk about doing away with Saturday delivery. Is that going to happen?
We hope not. We're all four postal unions are absolutely united that would be bad for the people of this country. That, along with plant closings, and last January, on January 5th, the post office slowed down the mail. There's no more overnight delivery for single-piece first-class mail. That's from one side of your street to the other. That's wrong-headed. We're all opposed to that. The post office and the Board of Governors has been cutting hours in a lot of the rural neighborhoods. That's wrong, and we're all pushing back, and we hope that Congress will help. You know, a lot of the problems with the post office Congress created in 2006 with a manufactured financial crisis, and Congress can fix that.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. So my understanding is, I mean, the post office is really, the Postal Service is sort of like, you can't win for losing based on these restrictions that Congress placed on the post office having to do with pensions?
It has to do with future retiree health costs. So in 2006, Congress did something that no other agency faces and no other company faces, which is they were forced to pre-fund retiree health care benefits 75 years into the future, but pre-fund it within 10 years and pre-fund it 100%. That's for people that aren't even born yet. No less work at the post office.
That's amazing.
So what happens is it's been used to then choke the post office and say, oh, we got to do away with 6-day delivery. We got to close post offices. We have to slow down the mail because we're, quotes, broke. But the post office, at the operating side, the post office is actually making money, serving the people well. So this is a serious problem that Congress can fix.
How many businesses are required to have money in the bank to take care of people 15 years down the road, their pensions, right?
This is 75 years down 75 the road. 75 years for potential health insurance liability.
So you put that burden on the post office, no wonder.
Right. The burden was $5.5 billion a year, and it's very important for the listeners to know or to recall that the post office does not run on any taxpayer money.
I was just going to ask
about that. It runs on the
user.
Using the post office, those of us who use it, that's where the revenue is generated
most people,
from.
I'm sure, do not know that.
Right. So this pre-funding is a cash cow where the treasury of the post office is created by the users and is there to make the post office go, is now being siphoned off into the federal treasury.
So if Congress would just take away or reduce that burden, I mean, the post office would be making money today,
yes.
Right?
On the operating side, the post office in the first 3 months of this year made $1.4 billion on the operating side. And at the end of the day, it's really not a business, it's a service. But the fact that it's doing well and making money means, it's supposed to break even. The cost of stamps and postage is supposed to serve it, make sure that we have the services for the people, provide living wages for hundreds of thousands of folks, and carry on. And that system has worked.
And none of these restrictions would be necessary if Congress would only do the right thing.
Well, fixing the pre-funding crisis would go a long way.
Right. Let's say a quick hello here to Robinson calling from out in West Lynn, Oregon. Hey, Robinson, thanks for your call. What's your question or comment?
Thank you. What are the prospects today and going forward of achieving Senator Elizabeth Warren's proposal that retail financial services be restored to the post office that were taken away in the 60s to serve not only communities that have been redlined by big banks, but also to make money doing something that the post office does well and great?
You know what, Robinson? That's an excellent question. Right on target. There's Mark. I'll let you go. Yeah.
Well, we are a big proponent of the post office providing financial services, call it, quotes, postal banking. It's a great social need with this predatory lending industry that's just preying off the people of this country. Not only Senator Warren, but the Office of Inspector General of the United States Postal Service has done a very in-depth paper on this question, is an advocate of this as well. Your questions, and of course it brings in revenue also to the post office without ripping the people off.
So how would it work?
At the same
this
time.
means that people could bank at the post office just like they do at a bank?
Just basic banking. It's done all over the world. As your caller said, it was done in this country. Pieces of it are still done today, such as money orders. So you would go into a trusting environment. The post office is still the most trusted federal agency with well-trained clerks, and carry out the business of basic banking. It's done all over Europe. It's done in much of Asia and Latin America. The question specifically was, what are the prospects? We think the prospects are good if the people of this country demand it. And one of the things we're doing with the other postal unions is we have a campaign for postal banking. About 15 national organizations are involved with this, and we are going to pressure the post office to do it. Unfortunately, the previous Postmaster General said it's not in his wheelhouse. Shame on him. He's no longer here. We have a new Postmaster General, and we hope that she will be much more open to
So
this
this
issue.
does not
It's great.
require a vote of Congress?
Most of what the OIG recommended does not require a vote of Congress. There may be some aspects of postal banking that would. So our approach is
do what you can.
Do what we can. Let's not worry about Congress right now. We know that Congress is going to be very influenced by the banking financial institution lobby. Interesting side note, the previous chairman of the Board of Governors, Mickey Barnett, is a lobbyist for the payday loan industry. So as long as we have people like that setting policy of the Board of Governors, that's a hurdle that we have to get over. But we are very optimistic that this would be a great thing for the people of the country, a great thing for the post office, and a great thing for postal workers.
Yeah, and you can do your banking and do your mail to take care of it all at the same time, at the same place.
Same time. And look, there's 38% of the zip codes in this country have no bank. But every one of those, basically every one of those zip codes has, guess what? A United States Postal Service right there, part of the heartbeat of that neighborhood, part of the heartbeat of that town.
38% of the boy, there's a cocktail hour.
And another 21% of the zip codes only have one bank. So
38% no bank, 21%.
Right. And more of the neighborhood banks are actually going to close and leave.
Sure. So all the more reason. Wow, that's very exciting. You can find out more about that. Just go to the website, apwu.org. Find out all about their good work and how you can weigh in. Good luck with this rally tomorrow, Mark. Okay?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for coming in. Thanks for all your good work. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
All right, Mark Dimondstein here. We'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says The business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, as we talked earlier in the program, some good news from Iraq that the city of Tikrit has been liberated from ISIS. But you know what? That raises a question. This war now has been going on for 8 months, the new war against ISIS. And even though President Obama denies that he needs congressional authority, he nonetheless has asked Congress for it. And Congress has done nothing about it. No discussion, no debate, no vote, and no declaration of war. So the question now today is, will Congress finally get around to authorizing the war against ISIS before the war is over? Let's hope so. Democrats and Republicans ought to get on the job. My parting shot for today, folks. Have a great April Fool's Day. We'll see you back here again tomorrow. We'll be looking for you.